Hello, hello. So today is the 22nd of August, and I did not record last month. I did warn people that I wouldn't be able to record last month, but um sorry still. uh I might look a little sunburned. Sorry, I went hiking on Mount Rainier last weekend and yeah, I got sunburned. Updating. So, I did go on the trip and was not able to record because of being on the trip. Um I guess I should start with the trip. On the trip, I did not feel comfortable swimming without a shirt on, even though we were on like a cruise ship with, swimming pools and stuff for part of the trip. And then, you know, once we were to mainland Alaska, swimming wasn't really that much of a thing. But I'm not, I'm not sure if it made me more uncomfortable how overweight I am. And I know that this weight is like I'm finally at my target weight for surgery. So I am in some ways glad that I'm this weight, but in other ways I'm kind of uncomfortable with my body, and I just felt I don't know, I felt like I didn't want to be exposed. And then I do technically still have like some scarage from top surgery, and while it's faded a lot and things like that, it's not like it's invisible. And I don't know, it felt like I was just surrounded by like all these thousands of other people, and I just felt like I didn't need like weird looks or glances or stuff like that. So I didn't not swim without a shirt on, and people almost always assume that I'm just straight up trans. Um and I view it more as I was kind of forced to transition and I'm trying to detransition, but in in reality I'm getting trans surgeries for FTM surgeries because I should have been a boy the whole time and I wasn't allowed to be. That was taken away from me. So it's like doubly complicated to try to explain to strangers and stuff. And I try to be patient and answer people's questions, but also people can be quite invasive. And I just didn't want to give people an excuse to treat me that way or to do that. I mean, if I'm sitting around in a hot tub with random people from who knows where, I don't want to necessarily be talking about my body or, surgeries that were done to me when I was little and so on and so forth. So I just didn't feel like swimming without my shirt on the whole trip. I was worried since we would be traveling a little bit internationally into Canada that maybe they'd have an issue with my documents or something like that, but they did not. So that was great. I brought my birth certificate just in case. My passport, for some reason, was declined, but it was not. They didn't stamp it. Apparently, they don't really do stamps anymore. They just scan the electric part. I was like, oh no. I kind of wanted to fill my passport with stamps, but no. That's apparently too old fashioned. I finally get a passport and it finally says my correct name and, my correct gender and no stamps. Too bad. So sad. I don't know why, but that was a little disappointing for me. It felt like I got denied something that other people would have gotten to have pretty easily, and now it's just not trending anymore or whatever. And I don't know, it was just disappointing. I took testosterone before the trip and I figured I would just take it again after. um since I usually take it, I'm supposed to take it, once a week, but I figured 2 weeks would be not a big deal. So I just didn't bring any of my testosterone because, again, I was traveling internationally, and yes, it's just Canada, but still, I didn't want to deal with, oh, why do you have these needles and syringes and stuff like this? Like, I just didn't want to deal with it, so I just didn't. And maybe that's not what other people would do, but that is what I did. The last time I traveled with the TSA, they were like, "Oh, you have heat in weird places for being a man." And this time that didn't happen. So that was nice. I didn't get wanded. Usually they wand me because they're like, "Why do you not have a really hot crotch?" Basically, is what they're noticing, and they're like, "That's strange." Um, that didn't happen this time, so kudos, yay, whatever. um, I would rather not be wanded than be wanded anyway. So, I don't know. It always feels weird when they call you out of the line. It's like you know you didn't do anything wrong, but you still wonder for a second, oh crap, what did I do? You know, it's just not fun. And I've had issues with the TSA ever since I started transitioning. Like it has always been this I remember before I got top surgery, I had too much heat on my chest. And so they would actually like take the wand and poke it with the wand. And they were like trying to figure out if there was like, something under there or if it was actually like a chest that, I don't know, they thought I was smuggling stuff, I guess. But yeah, it was always just an issue, and this trip I didn't have that issue at all. So that was nice. That was a relief. Um I was very torn on the trip between being somewhat depressed from all the grief, which unfortunately I'm still dealing with the grief, but I also was very happy. I mean, the weather was really good. The trip was fun. I got to see, parts of Alaska I'd never seen before. I got to spend time with my nephews and my brother and sister-in-law, and it was good food and a good trip overall. The weather again was just incredible. The people on the ship kept commenting. They were like, "It's crazy. We usually have like overcast weather. We saw so much wildlife. Saw whales and seals and sea lions, even minke whales, not just like humpbacks, but yeah, tons of different types of birds. There were eagles everywhere. It was during the salmon run, so the salmon were jumping everywhere, and we saw caribou. We saw like it was great, right? All this stuff. But it was also somewhat depressing because, well, first of all, um, I come from a strict matriarchy, and my grandmother is basically God on earth, and what she says goes. No one argues with my grandmother. My grandmother, it's her way or no way. And she's, very elderly at this point. And so people are like, she's having a lot of heart problems. She just recently had a stroke. She's been in and out of the hospital. Like, so people are like, yeah, she's probably going to die soon. And it was her birthday. So people came from all over. Like, so many relatives came to have like a big family reunion thing for her birthday, take pictures with her, her with her children, and then her with her grandkids, and then her with her great grandkids, and so on and so forth. All this stuff that I was not invited to because I am disowned and disinherited. And I was hoping that maybe she would see me privately and we could just, reminisce about some of the nice things from when I was a child. I didn't want like to get in a fight with her, even though I had prepared myself for the fact that she would misgender me and call me the wrong name and everything else. Um, I just, I just wanted, I guess, to say goodbye, and I made it very clear that that's all I wanted, and she still would not see me. She doesn't view me as being like a human. So I was hoping for some sort of, I don't know, again, just a goodbye, like not really like closure as far as like I'm not part of the family, but I was hoping she would let me say goodbye, but she did not. And that's sad, but also I feel like I tried. Like if she dies tomorrow, I tried. Like I offered, I reached out months in advance to try to make sure she would be as comfortable as possible with whatever options there were. I went out of my way to make an effort and she still, declined. And you can't control other people. Like, so I did not get to see her. And of course, immediately after the trip, again, just recently, she had a stroke. So yeah, it was, I think a week and a half after we got back from the trip, she had her stroke. So she's probably not going to live that much longer. And I will never get another opportunity to say goodbye to her. And all I can say is I tried. I get frustrated that my relatives judge me so harshly for having been born different, but they see it as like a giant embarrassment, or I mean it's partially religious for them, but like they they're a very hardy people, and being born like abnormal or deformed or whatever is like weakness. It's a flaw that they don't want to claim. So it's not purely religious, um, but it is partially religious for sure. I I don't know. I didn't really care whether I saw almost any of them, but I did want to see my grandmother. I guess you can't grow up thinking your grandmother is God on earth without developing some sort of attachment or something, because I will be sad when she passes. And she's a very, you know, harsh and demanding person in a lot of ways, but she when I was little did do some genuinely kind things for me. Like I grew up in poverty, like extreme poverty and abuse. And when I was teeny tiny and I was starving, I would run along the highway, like the ice road trucker highways up in Alaska. Um, and when I was like 2 years old, 3 years old, and I would run over to her house, and I kept doing it over and over in the mornings, and she would feed me every single time. She would feed me because she knew I was there because I was hungry, and I didn't have anything to eat. And my mother was not the best at making sure we were fed, and so she started sending out her dog, her big giant black dog named Max, and he would walk with me along the highway. She would send him out to go greet me, so that because she knew at some point, she didn't know exactly when, but at some point I would show up. And so it was a little unpredictable because, I'm a toddler, but she knew the dog could meet me part way. That the dog didn't have other things to be doing. The dog could go guard me. So, she always fed me. She started making cinnamon rolls in the mornings every morning so that I could have a big cinnamon roll face, with like the glaze all over my cheeks before I went home. And she never ever called my mother to get me until she had fed me first. And she she would sometimes give us something small, like there would be these big family Christmas gatherings with like all the relatives and cousins and stuff, and she knew we were super poor and our cousins picked on us like constantly about it, and it was not pleasant. And so I remember one Christmas, like, here's my cousins getting like easy bake ovens and action figures and Teddy Rockstrums and stuff. And you know, we were going to get nothing. And she got us, they were really weird little gifts, but they were obviously super cheap, but she got us something. And I was shocked to get anything. Like, I remember we lived in a garage when I was when I was little, and we actually had to live in a garage twice. But one of the times it was like, what was this garage? My father tried to turn it into a house thing, but anyway, the point is my grandmother knew we didn't really have stuff. We had like toys that were like the broken things in the free box at yard sales. That was our toys, like a Hot Wheel that was missing a car or wheel, or like, you know, McDonald's toys that didn't have a head anymore, or a Barbie doll whose hair had been completely cut off by some child. You know, like those were the kinds of things we had as toys. So one year, my grandmother just, for some reason, apparently got fed up. I did not know until I was an adult that it was my grandmother. My father came home, and I thought it was my father who had somehow done some sort of extra job or something and spent all the money on us. But he came home with a car filled with Legos and stuffed animals, an Atari with games, like a TV. We'd never had a TV before. Like all this stuff when I was like 5 years old. This so many toys, and it was just like every Christmas combined and then some. Like it was like someone took a toy store and just gave it to us, all in the back of his car. Just, I couldn't believe all the stuff that was in there, and it was like amazing. It was awesome, and I thought it was my father, and my father, he got the credit for it and stuff, but it was actually my grandmother. He told me once I had grown up, I had been telling him, hey, I remember when you came back with all those, you know, all those toys in your car. And he's like, oh yeah, that was your grandmother. Your grandmother did that. She felt bad for you kids, and she wanted you to have a better life, and that was what she could think of to do to make your life better. And it did. I couldn't even believe it. Like it was like some sort of miraculous thing, you know. I remember the TV, the now that we had one, we didn't really have, you know, we didn't have cable or anything like that. We had no movies for it, but the very first movie for it was actually a movie for me. It was The Rescuers, the little Disney movie with the little mice. My father got me that because he felt bad that he was going to miss my birthday, and it was the first thing I ever got that my cousins didn't have first. And oh, my cousins were, oh, so angry. They got the movie super fast. They demanded it from the, but you know, I had it first, and so I forgave my father very much. I forgave him. It was right before I turned 5 that all those toys came in, because it was my 5th birthday that he got me that movie. So yeah, we didn't have a TV. We'd never even like owned one, you know, period, until then. And I think he felt guilty that he could only give me one present after I just gotten this car of stuff. But like seriously, I thought he had done it anyway, so I just thought he was magic. Like, um, but yeah, it was this thing that she did, and I remember sometimes I would have like my little miserable looking toys, and she would like sew them clothes and stuff. You know, a lot of toys at free boxes at yard sales are naked; they don't got nothing. And my grandmother was a very good seamstress, and she would like sew whole blankets and pillows, and you know, like not just an outfit for them, but like a bunch of stuff for them to have, for me to play house with them and stuff. And she she liked watching old movies. She was named after Shirley Temple. So we would watch, you know, Shirley Temple movies a lot with my grandmother. She, during one winter, it snowed so deep that we literally were not tall enough. The snow was taller than us, little kids. So she would go out and walk ahead of us, pushing through the snow to make these tunnels for us kids to walk through, because the snow was too tall. And she would push through it like that and wade through it. Um, she took care of us while my mother had lung surgery, and she gave us hot chocolate every single day. She had me come stay with her for like a month or two. I don't remember exactly how long. When I was like 18, she was proud of me for graduating high school, and I had graduated with 4.0 for all 4 years, and she wanted to do something for me. And so, I mean, she took me halibut fishing. We went to the fishing runs in the river. We went um and just did all this stuff, and it was like all 100% she paid for all of it. And it was like this happy little break before I had to go figure out how to live life. Because I was like living on a couch and I was trying to figure out how to afford myself and stuff. But it gave me like this break. I had just gotten out of living with my mother and all of that abuse, and my grandmother gave me this little respite. And I just wanted to talk to her about things like that. Like, I didn't want to try to convince her to believe things differently about me or to change her political or religious views. I just wanted to talk to her about stuff like that. Things that she had done that I was grateful for, and that maybe didn't happen all the time, but that they happened at all meant a lot to me. And well, I guess I said it here. I didn't say it to her, but I guess I said it somewhere. And she'll die and have never heard any of it. But that's okay. That was her choice. The trip was also a little sad because we um we went again during the salmon run, and where I was born is on a peninsula called the Kenai Peninsula. It's on the very southern part of Alaska in the middle, and it is this big, huge, giant peninsula where some of the biggest salmon runs in the whole world is, and has glaciers, and it's big. And I was born right in the middle of nowhere in the woods in that peninsula. Where I was born is very tiny. It's still pretty small now. The area had gotten bigger. Some of the towns, like for instance, the town I was born in, it didn't have like a hospital and stuff when I was born, but it definitely does now. It's actually like gotten big. Um, and has stores and stuff in it that you might see just even down in the lower 48. But the little space that I had been born in, it's still pretty small. And because of the salmon run, there's a lot of tourists who come during the summer and they want to fish. And fishing for the salmon does not look like fishing you might imagine in your head. Fishing for salmon during the summer for these tourists involves getting a like 30-40 foot net, holding it out in the water, waiting for a salmon to swim into it because the river is literally that packed with salmon that they are like jumping over each other trying to get up the river, and then dragging it onto shore, cutting off your fillets, tossing the rest to the birds. And there are a lot of birds. In the middle of the river will be like seals, swimming along and getting some salmon as best as they can around the a zillion salmon. And yeah, they already have almost made king salmon extinct in that river because the tourists are so big on overfishing. And you can get like 45, 60 fish in like a 2 hour fishing session. Like it's a lot of fish. And they come from all over because they want the fish. And so the fishing boats have a struggle getting in and out. Where I learned to, drive commercial fishing boats when I was like 8 years old. I was driving these fishing boats, and Like there were so many people along the edges of the shore, it didn't even look like nature anymore. Like it's highly competitive. It's all these people just standing next to each other, dragging in salmon. And it's like the most soulless type of fishing you can imagine. There's no actual frontierman kind of feel to it at all. There is another form of fishing the salmon that the locals do called flossing, but that's not what the tourists do. And so these people come from like all over and they bring their RVs. Some of them stay in tents, whatever, and they just pile onto any space where they can get away with parking their RVs or putting their tents. And so there's these big giant lots of them just covering like huge swaths of space. Apparently, the locals, they try to deal with it as best they can. And then once those tourists leave, they get 10 months of reprieve. There's a hard cut off for salmon fishing because otherwise the salmon would be so overfished there wouldn't be enough to spawn for the populations to keep up. And so once that date happens, if you go out fishing, you're going to get in trouble. So everyone tries to shove in as many fish as they can before that date. Um, because of the 2 months that they come, and because I mean, in reality, the fishing's not even for like the full 2 months, but because of this situation, the tourists spend money and the state wants that money. But the locals don't like being overrun by all of these people and they don't like the wildlife and the nature being overrun. The state wanted to make more space for the tourists, and so they decided that the little tiny place where I was born is close enough that they're going to start tearing it up to make space for RV parking. And so the little tiny elementary school that I went to, it is very small. It has all the children, and it is one room per grade. And it is kindergarten all the way up till high school. And there's going to be no more school in like a year. If I had gone a year later, I wouldn't have gotten to go be nostalgic and take a picture in front of my old little elementary school. There's no such thing as middle school when you live out in the woods. And they're now going to send all of the kids on a 20-minute bus ride out to the next closest place. And it's like so dystopian that you're going to tear down an elementary school for children to make parking for a bunch of crazy tourists. And the lake that I learned how to swim in when I was 4 years old, I was watching frogs swim in the lake, and my father saw me watching the frogs, and he said, "Hey, do you see what they're doing?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you think you could do that?" And I said, "Yeah." So he picked me up and threw me in the lake, and I swam around like a little frog, and I've been able to swim ever since. That is how I learned how to swim. But yeah, we would swim in that lake until like our legs were covered in leeches. During the summers, and like during the winter it would freeze over, and you could do like ice skating and stuff. But my father, he would pile us all on this big sled and drag us around, by hand, just pull us around on the ice, and we'd all laugh and giggle and stuff. You could snowmobile on the lake, whatever. But yeah, it was sad. We went to go visit the lake, and they already had started tearing up the front of where the park was to create RV parking. They had ripped out the bathrooms and things like that, the little structures that they have at like state and national parks. They'd already started tearing them down because they were going to make RV parking all along there instead. And it's like, what are you doing? It's not even that close to the river, and they're tearing it up anyway because they need more space for more tourists. And apparently, my father, he said that they petitioned. They went to protests at the community center and said they didn't want this to happen, but the you know people at the state level wanted it to happen, so it's happening anyway. And so that was really sad. And on top of that, we went to go see Exit Glacier. And that is the glacier that I've been going to since I was teeny tiny. I remember when I was a little kid, it was like this big blue wall of blue of ice, and you go up and climb on top of it and throw ice at each other and get in trouble because your dad's like, stop it. But it was exciting and it was fun. And then there were these little signs of, oh, here's where it was in like 1970 or 1912 or whatever. But you'd get to the glacier like super fast. And then when I was 18 and I came to see it, there was a river basin there where the glacier had been, and the glacier was all along the whole side of the mountain and stuff, and it was still there though, and you could go climb up on it with some spikes on your shoes, and we could still go climb on it. Went there to see it. There's now a sign for where it was in 2005. Last time I saw it was 2003. And I told the park ranger this is depressing, and not just because it left a depression. There's just a valley. There's just this giant gouge that the glacier left behind, and the glacier is almost nothing. Like it's almost completely gone. And where it is now from where it was when I was 18 is just like mind-boggling. It's this canyon with like a big waterfall um coming off the glacier dripping down into it, and then the water runs down into the river basin. And all of that used to be glacier. And it's like this super tangible thing that I can see that A, people who think climate change isn't real are just ridiculous. But B, look at the passing of my life. It's like me and this glacier have this tangible visual, and in another 20 years it won't exist. It'll have completely receded to the ice field. And it's like how much empty space was there felt like the emptiness of my life, like all of the loss. My life has not exactly been pleasant for the majority part, and I've lost so much time, and I'm trying to do things now that people 20 years younger than me are doing the exact same things, and I'm still trying to get to where I'm physically whole after having been surgically altered when I was little. And I I'm still trying so hard to get to a starting spot. There's been so many barriers in my life that I'm still trying to get to the starting line where most people start life at, when they enter into adulthood. And that's so hard to see, like to see something like that. Like I went there expecting to go climb on the glacier. There's basically no glacier left, and even if I climbed up the side of the mountain and got all the way up to where the glacier is, um it would almost be disrespectful to go step on the glacier at this point because it's tiny, and I don't want to depress even one drop of water out of it because it's already dying by 2 inches a day. And it was just super hard to see. it, when I was younger, it felt like this thing that would just always be there. And I guess I took it for granted that no, the world is filled with change. I came back from the trip and I've been working and doing schoolwork and um, dealing with everything. And I was not able to record on the 18th because of work, actually. Today is the first day that I only had a little bit of work. So today is the day that I'm recording, but I guess I could have tried to record last weekend, but again, I went to Mount Rainier and climbed all over the side of it. So I didn't. I chose the mountain over sitting and recording a video. Sorry, but um, it's just been me trying to catch up on a bunch of things and prepare a bunch of things for going back to school. It's been stressful, and I've still been quite sad. So I've been working around myself, um, and I just following through with deadlines as best as I can. But one of those things is electrolysis. And last session, so not last week, but the week before that, she finally said, yeah, I can't force an hour out of this arm. We're stopping at 45 minutes. We have to. There's not enough hair here to continue. And I was like, is that the moment? Are we there? And she was like, we're pretty close. Yeah. And I'm like, so, I got really excited, like really excited for like 2 hours. And then it hit me, oh my gosh, I need to contact the hospital. I'm going to have to re up my letters, stuff like this. And what if during the consultation they're like, no, your skin graft's still not going to be completely smooth enough or something? And obviously, I'm still going to do electrolysis while trying to get into my consultation. But the other thing that I'm afraid of is what if they're like, oh, electrolysis took so long, it's going to be like at least a year because the waiting list is now super long and you're no longer at the front of it. And everything has already been so arbitrarily long. Like, this has been very difficult for me. And the passage of time and feeling like stuck really sucks. And so I have not actually contacted the hospital because I have been so anxious. And every time I try to do it, I just can't. It's like not that difficult. You go log in and type out a message. You would think that would be very doable. And instead, I get so much fear that I just can't. Like, I already have to argue with insurance about my freaking testosterone. Um, there's just so many freaking barriers, man. And I might finally have made enough progress with this stupid electrolysis that I could maybe try to make progress, but do I realistically think that I'm not gonna have to like fight for it? And I've been so filled with grief. I guess I'm not filled with a lot of fight at the moment. And I try super hard to not put that on any other people, to not be depressing. And I've been trying to still show up for things and still be enthusiastic and passionate about helping people. And that's been an issue too. I got told by my boss that my enthusiasm diminishes other people's enthusiasm. And I'm like, what the hell? That's such a horrible thing to say to someone. And I asked all my coworkers, if I was too much, or if they felt like I was doing too much, or anything like that, and they all said no. They all were very happy with me being passionate and they liked it. So it seems to just be my like boss, but at the same time, I never knew she felt that way. I thought she liked my enthusiasm too, so I was apparently delusional, and that wasn't fun. Like I thought my job was the one thing that was going right. Like I really liked working with this grant and helping students access, you know, better funding options and resources. And I thought it was all going really well. And at least there was that. That's what I kept telling myself. At least there's that. And now I don't even have that to tell myself. I I'm having a hard time. But I am trying my best. And that's all any of us can do. I obviously will contact the hospital. I just I need to build up some sort of mental fortitude or something. I don't know, maybe it'll be easy. That would be that would be miraculous. But maybe. Kind of don't expect that though, especially with the current political climate and everything. I feel like I mean they're already trying to take Medicaid away period, and I feel like they're like people are panicking and feeling the pressure, and they're the waiting list must be just like horrible. And I was at the front. I was, and I can't imagine that they like even remember me. So because it's been so long because of the scammers who scammed me from the first electrolysis place. So I just not feeling confident, and I'll get there. But that's where I'm at the moment. And again, the trip for the most part was actually good. There were like good memories made for the most part, but those three things, not getting, you know, to have a goodbye with my grandmother, and the tearing stuff up for like what a freaking capitalistic dystopia to destroy nature and to destroy elementary schools for children so that tourists 2 months out of the year have more pavement, and then the other 10 months of the year the locals all have to just see the pavement. It's not great. And then the glacier, that was really depressing. uh I had to sit down for that. That was a lot to take in, a lot of emptiness. And all I can do is keep trying. All I can do is keep going. But sometimes stuff sucks. Oh my gosh. I'm thankfully almost to finals, but I had a one of my two classes that decided to take for the summer. The teacher, she okay, well, when I went on the trip, I told both my teachers I'm going on this trip. I won't even be in the state of Washington. She was nice about it and said, "Oh, I'll open things up on Monday and you can work ahead, and that way you won't be doing schoolwork every single day during your trip." My other teacher said, "Things are due when they're due. They're going to be due almost every day. Don't turn things in late." Basically was what he said. I thought, "Dang, he's not very nice." Turns out um he's much nicer, like significantly nicer. It was very stressful doing schoolwork so much during that trip. Like it was that I was doing schoolwork almost every day, but his class is a lot funner and more interesting, and he is a much nicer teacher. She seems to be one of those teachers who is afraid of students cheating with like chat gpt and stuff, and so she's looking for differences. And I've seen this with some of the teachers, and I've talked to them and heard them, you know, express their fears about students like cheating and stuff because I was a tutor. And so they would tell me. And my big thing is, if you're looking for different as the red flag that students are using ChatGPT, you're automatically being discriminatory against students who are different. And so uh, at the beginning of the quarter, Disability Services sent my teachers a letter saying that I have ADHD. And so she should have known, had no reason not to know. And yet, when I do things different, because sometimes I get distracted, or sometimes I get really focused on a detail that other people wouldn't, get focused on. Sometimes I miss details that other people would have easily seen. It's a thing. She decides that I'm using electronics, and so she wanted to like suggest that I was cheating. And I was I fully explained, I took screenshots, and she never did accept that I didn't cheat. She just decided that it was far enough into the quarter that it would be a waste of time to deal with it, so she was just going to drop it. And on the one hand, I'm glad I'm not being accused of cheating, but on the other hand, it's not because she thinks I have merit, it's because she thought it would be too much of a hassle because there was only 2 weeks left of the quarter when she finally came to a conclusion. And I I tried going back and forth with her on like emails and stuff, so thankfully everything's in writing, but it's very frustrating because I've been different my whole life. I can't control that I'm different, and I don't want this to be a trend. I don't want teachers going forward to be seeing my differences as a bad thing. Thus far in college, most of my teachers thought me being different was like interesting and inspiring. Some of them even like it made them feel excited about teaching again when I would do things that were, not the same old mundane stuff that they were used to. Some of the teachers seemed genuinely pleased. So I don't want that to go away and instead have like a bunch of negative attention because I'm different. I'm hoping it's just this one teacher and that for some reason she just doesn't like me, even though, usually teachers like me a lot. I'm hoping it's just this particular situation, but it is frustrating that I didn't get accused of cheating because, like, of some sort of maybe program that she used to check for cheating or something like that. No, I got accused of cheating because I did something different. And the different thing I did, you want to know what it was? It's a statistics class, so a lot of the numbers involve decimal points. And I moved the decimal point over two more to make sure that I got the answer right. I did not trust what I was looking at. So I went with a calculator and calculated the number so that I could see two more decimal points over. How dare I? And I don't understand as a math teacher how you don't know that the number is still the same number. It doesn't matter how much you move the decimal left or right. The decimal point doesn't determine what the number is. The number is still the same number. It's just rounding it one direction or the other, or unrounding it, going the other direction. It's exactly the same number. It didn't stop being that number. But she accused me of not using Z tables and stuff because essentially what the problem was me being distractible. I read the left X side instead of the right X side, and it just happened to be that I was looking at rows 8, 9, and 10 on the left side, and on the right side, it was actually 0, 1, and 2. So the numbers happened to be the same numbers, but something felt off, and I couldn't fully be like, I didn't I didn't understand what was off. Like when I was doing the assignment and stuff, I didn't know for sure. So I just thought, screw it. I don't need to do this table. I can calculate it and make sure that I'm looking at the right numbers on the table. And oh my God, she decided, no, you're a cheater. And I'm like, I get for her, it must be frustrating that I read the wrong X side and read basically the upside down version and still came up with the right answer. That must be frustrating for her. Fair. Fair enough. I did not read the correct side. Totally admit that. But I don't like being accused of things other than what I did. And just because I did it differently, just because I tried to check myself, because I could tell something was off, but I didn't know what it was. And it didn't occur to me, oh, you might just be reading the wrong side, duh. Like, anyway, for anyone who doesn't know what a Z table is or statistics stuff, cool. Don't worry about it. The point is, the point remains the same. It's still the same number. Whether you move the dot on a decimal point number over or not, it's still exactly the same number. If it's 1.1 and then you move the decimal point over two more times and it's actually 1.141, it's still the exact same number. You could move it over two more times and then it's 1.14102. Okay, it's still the exact same number. It's still 1.1 in the long run. It just happens to be that the decimal point got moved. That's it. Because I calculated it to make sure I got it right. And yeah, I feel like the current administration is hounding people and trying to deport people who matter to me. Oh, that's another thing that was sad. In the little teeny tiny place where I lived nearby in the next town, there was a little Mexican community, and there used to be a bunch of little Mexican restaurants and stuff. When I went there, there was a bunch of closed signs on them, and I was like, "Oh, that's sad. I guess they went out of business or something." We went to the only one left, and the wait time was like over an hour for the food, and I was like, "What is happening?" And my father was like, "Oh, well, you can't really blame them, you know." And I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Oh, this is the last one. There's none left." And I was like, "No more Mexican restaurants besides this one?" He said, "Well, that too, but there's no more Mexicans. These are the only ones left. ICE came in and took them all." And I was like, and he was like, "I kept telling them, maybe go get citizenship or something." And they kept being like, "But our lives are fine." They had been living there for longer than I've been alive. They had more right to call that home than me. I was born there, and they had lived there longer than I've been alive. I haven't been back in like more than a decade, and they had lived there every single day, and they all got taken away by ICE. Like people who had been there for decades and decades, like crazy. And I feel like there's this big push for anything or anyone that's different, get rid of them. And like this suspicion for different. And I've always been different. I was literally born different. So yay me. I just I just am struggling with a lot of fear and anxiety. And I am trying very hard to keep plodding along. But I could really use a win. Just in general in life right now. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe I will contact the hospital and magically I'll get that win. Wouldn't that be amazing? But unfortunately life hasn't been that kind. And I just don't expect it. And I would appreciate it, but that's not what I expect. Anywho, next month should be more back to the regular and stuff. Obviously that trip was like a one-time thing, so I should be recording around the 18th going forward in a more consistent way for whatever few people watch these. But yeah, unfortunately, that's where things are at.